Oh, I'm an herbalist. You know, 300 years ago, I would have been the village witch that everybody says, oh, stay away from her, but secretly they come to me to heal them. Herbs don't just like treat conditions, they treat people. I want to find out what's going on with you and your body to figure out the problem, what's causing all these symptoms, so we can fix the problem. But I learned everything that I needed to learn to be a farmer at that point in 2014. So ever since then, I've just progressively and successively worked on farm after farm after farm. Plants have intelligence. Plants show, so I will tell you the one woo-woo thing I'll say is it's a commonly held belief amongst other herbalists. Plants show up when you need them. Where comfrey shines is if you hurt yourself. So if you fall down and bruise yourself, if you slip and sprain your ankle or sprain your wrist or something, you can put comfrey either, you can do it like just take the leaves and put it on there as a poultice, and that will work.
How long have you been doing this, and what really has your like knowledge base been set from? Okay. You're the foraging lady, right?
Yes, I am.
Your social media presence is Black Sun Farm, right?
Yeah, well, on TikTok, I am at the original meal chan. And the reason for that is when I started TikTok, I didn't care. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do this for fun. And all of a sudden I got a following and I was like, well, crap, I can't change my name now. So yeah, on TikTok, I'm at the original meal chan. And, my business is Black Sun Farm. So like on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the internet in general, it's Black Sun Farm. And this is Connecticut, so Black Sun Farm, Connecticut. BlackSunFarmCT.com is my website. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And what are you doing here?
I'm an herbalist. I am a small farmer, but most of what I do here is I harvest or forage for the wild stuff that either grows here naturally or comes up. I also teach foraging classes to people. Like I will go to somebody's house and show them what's available that's edible and medicinal in their own yard, in their own woods. So I do a lot of that. I teach classes in workshops here. I make some herbal remedies and things, and I teach people how to make them themselves. So I'm basically trying to empower people to heal themselves to the best of their capability. It's not so much, oh, you never need a doctor or you're never going to need a surgeon, because obviously if you cut your foot off, you better go to the hospital. But there's so many problems that people get and have on a regular basis. They really can heal themselves if they just know how. And I'm trying to teach people how, and how to get those ingredients and whatnot on their own, so they don't have to rely on somebody else or rely on the pharmaceutical industry, at least as much as most people do.
Yeah.
So that's I'm a healer.
I love that. And you have your little plot here is, what'd you say, 1.2?
1.2 acres is the entire thing. That's with the garage and the house, and there's a stone wall back there and the sheds and everything.
So how much growing space do you think you have? Like,
oh God. I would say maybe half an acre of it is actually growing.
Wow.
Because there's some stuff around here that doesn't look like it's a garden, but it's a garden.
Okay.
So the big garden is right there, and this was my little garden. This area was a garden, 40 years ago.
Okay.
I could take you in there if you want.
Sure.
It's just, it wasn't, before I moved here, it wasn't taken care of. So this was all overgrown bushes and all kinds of junk in here. And I paid somebody to come in and take the bushes out and rototill it for me, just so that I would have someplace to start.
Yeah.
And he rototilled poison ivy into the entire thing.
No.
Yeah, so I got poison ivy really bad the first year I lived here. A lot of times. I ended up spending the following year, my ex-husband and I we just took everything down, we mowed the whole thing. The entire year I was going through here spraying vinegar on the poison ivy. Like an entire year I didn't farm because I couldn't do it in poison ivy.
How long ago was that? When did you get here?
So we moved here in March of 2017. I was still, he helped me build like a lot of the fencing and things like that was him, and he built the fencing around those sheds back there and stuff. But all the garden building and the planting and all of that is me.
So you're a one-woman show.
I am a one-woman show, yeah. Wow. I've been doing this. I'm what happens apprenticeship on a farm in 2014. And that's, in high school I was in VOAG and FFA, so a lot, hopefully some people know what that is.
I for sure know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. I was an FFA member too, and a 10-year 4-H'er. So
yeah, nice.
Got you.
I wasn't in 4-H, but I was in FFA, and I did animal science, which is funny because everybody knows me as the plant lady now, but I went to the nationals a couple of times.
Wow.
I was awesome, at animal science and livestock judging and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did in high school. And then I was turned on to the idea, like I found out that you could be a farm apprentice. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I found out about farm apprenticeship, so I found a farm. I started interviewing and I found a farm and I got hired as an apprentice. So I went from being a stay-at-home mom for 4.5 years to suddenly living and working on a farm 60 hours a week. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I was busting my butt. I lost a lot of weight. If you ever want to lose weight, go be a farmer. But I learned everything that I needed to learn to be a farmer at that point in 2014. So ever since then, I've just progressively and successively worked on farm after farm after farm. I am super highly qualified farm labor. That's what I am. And 2022, I was working as a farm manager. I was managing a farm up in Massachusetts. That went great. I mean, I did a great job. I know I'm good at what I do. It's just at the end of the year, you know, November came around and she was like, all right, see you later, because everybody gets laid off in November. But I tried getting a job, like a regular job, for like 3 solid months. And I couldn't find one. It just was a nightmare. So finally I said, you know what, I've been doing this. This has been my business since 2017. Like I've dabbled, I've gone to farmers markets, I've been growing vegetables and herbs and all kinds of stuff for years now, but it was like a side business. There's a huge difference between maybe you're making $2,000 or $3,000 a year versus you're making a living as a farmer. And I basically just said, the hell with it, I'm diving in because I have to.
Wow.
I couldn't find a regular job, so I put myself whole hog into advertising my business, and not with money. It was all time. I think I maybe over the entire of last year spent maybe $100 on advertising of anything. Okay. But it was basically like social media presence and the internet. I'm all over the internet.
Okay. So, that's awesome.
But yeah.
So what are you doing on the garden then?
The garden itself. This is a no-till operation, so I'm not tilling. This thing right here, I will show you, is...
Oh, the broad fork.
Yeah, this is a Meadow Creature broad fork, and I only just bought it and started using it like 2 weeks ago. So all this does, and I can show you if you want me to do it. Yeah. Let's find a spot that needs to be done anyway. How about right here? I'll just show you. Okay. So you stick this. And this is not that wide, so you do have to kind of go. I usually would start at one end and work my way back so that I don't have to walk over it again. This is just demonstration purposes. I could do it again. So this is kind of fun, honestly. And you can clear I have layers and layers of hay and chips and mulch and stuff, but that's it. You just put it in. That's it. Yeah. Yep. Put it in and move it up. It's just like a regular garden fork, except it's heavy duty and it's pulling up everything. And it's really aerating the soil. It's aerating the soil, yeah. Like I'm basically making the worms really mad at me. Yeah. They're like, no, this is my home. So anyway, and that's what happened over here. But I just started using this. I think it's helping. It's gonna be helping anyway. Yeah. So I've got celery and I've got broccoli and I've got some kale, and underneath that little sad looking white thing is some more kale and collard greens. This garden right here mostly is feeding me and my family. However, there are a few things that, because I'm an herbalist and a forager, I eat wild foods. So things that show up many times, not all the time, but most of the time, I let it stay for a while so that I can eat it. So a lot of things that people think are weeds and they want them out of their garden and they're like, get this thing the heck out, and they're just paying people to weed and weed and weed. I'm running around going, ooh, I can eat that. Ooh, I can eat that. Like what? So let's see. This right here. What's that? Violet. Okay. That's violets. It's about the end of the time for the flowers. The flowers aren't out anymore, but violet leaves and flowers are edible and medicinal. They're a lymphatic cleanser. Sorry, I'm an herbalist, so I'm going to start giving lessons about everything. Go for it. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. You have to move around to pump lymph through your system. And if you're so sick or you're debilitated or something's going on and that's not enough, you're not able to move that stagnant lymph out of your body. Herbs, there are some herbs that can help, and violet is one of them. Violet, cleavers, calendula, a lot of things like that. Okay. This right here is yellow dock, which is the bane of most farmers' existence. Yes. A lot of people hate yellow dock. Did you know you can eat it? I didn't know you. Is it the same? You can eat the seeds, like make it a flour? You can make the seeds into flour, and they're actually really tasty. I did that last year. I was like, oh my God, I actually threw some seeds in my garden on purpose this spring because of how tasty that flour was. I said, holy cow, this was amazing. Anyway, so the younger leaves, like these older kind of rattier ones, you wouldn't want that, but the younger leaves, this one or this one, I would pick those. And I will take those along with some dandelion, which, where's some dandelion? I got a dandelion right here.
Oh, I have dandelion in my tea every morning.
Roasted dandelion root tea?
I think it's just dried leaves.
Oh, okay. So dandelion, I don't mind when the dandelions spread because I work with all parts of the dandelion. I love dandelions.
Yeah.
So I'll come out here and just pick some dandelion leaves and some yellow dock leaves and whatever else I can find, and I throw that in my dinner and saute it up, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
So plus, all these wild things that show up in my garden or in your garden, wherever you are, wild foods are something, I don't remember the exact number. I'm gonna get, it's close to like 50 to 60% more vitamin dense than any cultivated food or vegetable you can find. So if you think about it this way, you have to control. You build any kind of garden or your farm or whatever it is, you want to put this plant into this plot of soil, right? So you have to till or garden or dig or do something, and you have to amend that soil. You have to make sure that that plot of soil has exactly what that particular plant needs to grow. Wild stuff just says, I'm gonna grow here. I'm gonna grow over there.
Because the conditions are right.
The conditions are right.
I remember, so when we farmed, we made the mistake of putting our piglets, our weaned piglets, in our garden because we were like, they'll till up the soil.
Yeah.
Well, they activated the seed bed.
Oh, yeah.
And we had so many things growing that we did not want growing, but the conditions were right.
Exactly.
Those pigs had activated those seeds, and there was just so much growing there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So this garden feeds you.
This garden feeds me and my family, and which is very, very small right now, but if I have extra, I will sell it at the farm stand or the farmer's market. This is only about a 40 by 60 plot, so honestly, I don't really get that much extra. We eat a lot of vegetables. I will use the garlic. The garlic is there. There's some turmeric planted here, and there's some turmeric and ginger planted over there.
Okay.
So I make fire cider every year, and people go crazy for my fire cider because it's really, really strong. Like, everybody's like, I don't want horseradish, and I'm like, I can't even keep enough horseradish to keep these people happy. They want tons and tons because I make really, really good fire cider. But obviously, you can't make fire cider until the fall, because it's mostly root vegetables, which you don't dig up until the fall. But in here, honestly, by the time probably July or August rolls around, there's so many weeds in here that, yes, some of them I'm digging up and pulling out because they're in the way. If I want to grow some kale, if I want to grow tomatoes, I have to move them, okay? Right. But there's some stuff that I just let it stay. If you've ever heard of Solanum nigrum, it's a Solanaceae family, so tomatoes and eggplants and potatoes and all that, they're in the Solanaceae family. Solanum nigrum is a tomato-like plant that grows. The greens are edible. I think you're supposed to only eat like the tips, the end of the tips of the greens. I don't do that. I usually just wait until the berries are good. So there's something that is similar, that's a cultivated version. They call it garden huckleberry. It's just Solanum nigrum. It's basically the same thing. Okay. Solanum nigrum likes to show up in my yard, and every year, without fail, people freak out because they think it's belladonna. They think it's deadly nightshade. Okay. Like, oh my God, what do I do? This is deadly nightshade in my garden. And I'm looking at them going, no, that's food. Eat it, they're delicious. So it's these little tiny, like the size of my pinky nail tomato berries, basically. Yeah.
Okay, I think I've seen those before.
They're little black, yes, but they grow in little clusters. And so that's the difference there. Deadly nightshade, and I have videos of this like on my TikTok and stuff, but deadly nightshade is one berry growing at a time. And Solanum nigrum, which is just black nightshade kind of thing, grows in these little clusters of like 5 or 6 berries. And I say berries, but they're basically tomatoes. Right. They're sweeter than a tomato, and they're delicious. You don't want to eat them when they're green, you want to eat them when they're black. That's one of many reasons I'm Black Sun Farm, is I like the black vegetables.
You're turning your herbalism into a business, and you've been experimenting, making tinctures, salves, things like that, right? I also do consultations for people. Okay. So they pay me for that. Okay.
Herbalism is not just, instead of taking this medication, you take this herb. Right. And a lot of people are confused by that. So like literally most of the nation doesn't understand the difference, because for the last like 2 or 3 generations, that's how we're raised. You're sick, you take this pill. you know, you have these symptoms, you take this pill or this drink or whatever it is. And that's not how herbalism works. So I work holistically, which means you come to me and you say, I'm sick, I've got this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, and I'm on this medication and this medication, and I really don't like these medications because I don't like the side effects or whatever's happening. And this is like millions of people at this point. And I don't say, okay, well, instead of taking this medication, why don't you take this herb or these couple of herbs? I don't do that. I say, all right, you've got this symptom, this symptom, this symptom. What's your diet like? What's your lifestyle like? Are you exercising? What other medications are you on? How much do you move? What kind of foods do you eat? And what are you doing for a living? What times do you work? What is your life like as a person? So, because herbs don't just like treat conditions, they treat people. I want to find out what's going on with you and your body to figure out the problem. What's causing all these symptoms so we can fix the problem so you don't have those symptoms anymore. And it's not 100% of the time, because sometimes people have had surgery and you're on medication because you don't have an organ. Then you need to be probably on that medication. But there's other things we can do to help your body still function happily.
So if this is where you eat, where do you grow the herbs for?
Well, I will say some of the herbs grow in here too, because they randomly put themselves here. Like there's that giant plant right over there, that's comfrey. You want to look?
Really?
Yeah. This is comfrey. This is one of my best-selling herbs. Like, period, end of story. Everybody goes nuts. Do you want me to tell you why?
Beautiful. Please do, because it's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and there's bees on it. Hi, bee. So this is comfrey, Symphytum officinale. There's a couple different varieties of comfrey. This is the like official version of comfrey. This is the one that spreads, which for most people is a problem, and for me it is really kind of annoying because I have it popping up all over the place.
There's
one there. There's one there. There's one there. There's like 50 of them over there in those gardens. So yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt for me, honestly. But comfrey, I mostly work with the leaves. The roots are stronger than the leaves, but I mostly work with the leaves. It makes a beautiful infused oil with the leaves. Where comfrey shines is if you hurt yourself. So if you fall down and bruise yourself, if you slip and sprain your ankle or sprain your wrist or something, you can put comfrey you can do it like just take the leaves and put it on there as a poultice, and that will work. But most people don't have this growing around. So I infuse it in oil, and then you can do either the oil or you can just mix the oil with some beeswax and make a salve, whatever you want to do to make it preserve it. Yeah, you rub that oil or that salve on wherever you hurt, and usually within a couple of days at the most, you're back to perfect again.
Wow.
This heals bruises and sprains. It actually helps heal broken bones. It decreases the healing time of broken bones by like a third. The only problem that people freak out about comfrey is the plant contains something called pyrazine alkaloids, which is a component that can cause liver damage. But this has been studied like in isolation in a laboratory setting. They isolate that thing and they concentrate it, and then they give it to lab rats, and they're like, oh, well, it's causing the lab rats, damage. And it's like, well, of course, when you concentrate this one medicinal constituent, it's gonna hurt people. Yeah. It's like that with several plants. The government's like, no, you can't do it. So technically you're not supposed to take it internally. And the general wisdom that I know of now, because I've studied it for a while, is if you really hurt a bone, you broke a bone, something like that, you could take it as a tea for like 2 weeks, but if you were drinking a tea of comfrey every day for months and months and months, then you would probably get some liver damage. You just need to be careful with that. And even topically, like I usually tell people, look, don't use it for more than like 8 weeks. But in all honesty, if you broke your wrist and you started putting comfrey on your wrist, you'd probably be healed a lot faster than you think you are.
So you worked on a bigger farm before.
Multiple bigger farms, yep.
But what was it that really pushed you towards the herbalism and the healing side of things?
Honestly, I dove headfirst into herbal. Like I started dabbling in herbalism in 2009 after I had my daughter. Okay. Because when you have a baby, anybody that's watching is a mom, when you have an infant, there is absolutely nothing on the market that you can safely give an infant. Like until they're at least 6 months to a year old, if your baby has problems, they just say, well, ride it out. And I got a book about herbal remedies that you could work with for kids, and chamomile is safe for babies. So when your baby is having colic or really upset stomach or they're just freaking out, chamomile tea can help, and it actually helped. And I was like, oh my God, this worked, this is fantastic. Wow. So I started dabbling from there on, and then in about 2018, near the end of 2018, I was losing my health insurance. So I just said, all right, I can either pay this $400, $500 for this class and learn how to be an herbalist, or I can pay $400 a month for this health insurance that's still crappy. And I ended up going without health insurance for a while. I invested what little money I had in learning herbalism so I could take care of myself. Because I'd already been dabbling, and I'd already been dabbling in foraging and everything for a while, it turns out I'm really good at it.
Just like identifying the plant?
I'm really good at identifying plants. Because of my farming background and everything, I'm really good at growing the plants. And I've picked up pretty quickly how to make the herbal medicine, and I'm still learning. Any good herbalist is learning all the time. I'm not about to say I'm the best herbalist in the world. I'm not the best herbalist in the world. I'm a decent herbalist, I think. You have to understand body systems and how the body works. You have to understand at least mildly energetics. You have to understand synergy between different types of herbs. It's not just this herb is good for this. It's how can these couple of herbs work together to heal these couple of problems you've got going on in your body. And it's a big process. Kind of a combination for me. Because the people that don't know me, like new people that come to me, are like, oh, I want to get her herb, or I want to get this thing that she makes. And then they're like introduced into my world, and if they start liking it, that's when they decide, oh, Amelia knows what she's talking about. I want to find out how she can help me. Yeah. And that's when I get more like real good customers. Yeah. Instead of just oh, I bought this salve, or I bought this tea from you, or whatever. Right. So one of the important things that I do want to say about my business, I know this is really small, doing herbs, growing herbs maximizes the productivity of a very small space.
Okay,
so
what do you mean by that?
Because when you're growing vegetables and you're farming vegetables, you need a large area, whether those vegetables are going to be spreading or growing, or you need to spread them out further, especially if you've got a tractor or something. I don't have any, I have no equipment. Yeah. I do 100% hand tools here, other than that meadow creature, which is also a hand tool. Right. So yeah, I'm doing this all by hand myself, so it's a lot of work. Herbs will grow. Number one, they spread on their own, whether you want them to or not. So if you get lucky, you're like, oh, I can work with this one herb and it likes my yard anyway. So like it turns out lots of people want lemon balm, and I have so much lemon balm it's coming out my ears. So like, all right, I'll just sell you some lemon balm, that kind of stuff. You can make herb bundles, you can sell the herbs themselves, you can make products with the herbs, and you don't need a huge, 20 acres, 30 acres like you would when you're, raising cattle, or enough vegetables to feed the entire town kind of thing. So I've worked on those farms before, and it's a big area. Those people absolutely need a tractor or some kind of equipment. It's a big deal to grow that much vegetables and fruits and food for yourself, or food to sell, which is why I've never been able to really produce enough to sell a large quantity to other people. Right. However, because the herbs put themselves wherever they want, and I just say, okay, you want to grow there, go for it. Yeah. I can go back around all year long and harvest that herb wherever it decided to put itself. And I'm maximizing, I'm utilizing the weeds that grow on my farm.
I really, really like that, because like you said earlier, people get frustrated with the weeds that come up in their garden space. And I had another farmer say this too, that if the conditions are right and that herb is there, well, it's telling me, hey, I need to be here. Yep. Like I think about the comfrey that you have. Yeah. I mean, if it's coming up so much, you're like, well, it's here. And
I might as well do something with it.
I'm going to figure out how to use it and how, what it wants me to do with it, basically. Yeah. So what other herbs do you have in here that you mainly work with? I know you said you've got like a couple staples that you're working on.
Yeah, well, right now the catnip looks beautiful. You can look at the catnip. Oh, yeah. And my cat knows where to find the catnip. So if you didn't know, catnip is in the mint family, like a lot of these other things. Catnip is a sedative for people. So it makes your cat go crazy. But for people, if you drink catnip tea, it's going to help you fall asleep at night.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so a lot of, I will tell you, I have had thousands of people at this point say, I need help sleeping. And I'm like, have you tried catnip? Catnip's other claim to fame that I talk about anyway is if you get gas, catnip helps you stop farting. So,
okay.
Yeah, catnip tea is a great remedy for that.
So it's also like a digestive aid.
It is a digestive aid.
Okay, yes. Okay, very cool.
Yes. What else is in here? So marshmallow.
Oh yeah.
Marshmallow spreads. Marshmallow is very easy to grow, and marshmallow spreads. The leaves you can put in teas. The root is where the medicine really shines, because you can dig the root up and you can just make a cold infusion where you just grind some of it up, put it in a cup with some water, and let it sit like overnight. Okay. And that is mucilaginous is the word, which means it's goopy. It's like drinking snot.
Oh. Gross.
But sounds gross, but if you have GERD or acid reflux or any of those kind of upper gastric issues, you can take it for upper or lower digestive problems. There's a big thing online. I don't know if you've ever heard of Barbara O'Neill. She's really famous. She's from Australia, I think it is, or no, she's from New Zealand, sorry. She's always talking about, if you need to heal your gut, take slippery elm. Slippery elm doesn't really grow up here. I guess I know some people have found 1 or 2 trees, but it's not like a big thing around here. Okay. So I don't work with slippery elm because I try to practice mostly bioregional herbalism, which means the herbs that grow here are what I work with. But the other thing is, in order to harvest slippery elm, they cut the entire tree down. Oh. They cut the whole tree down and then strip the entire thing of bark. And then they sell that overseas. They sell it all over the place. There's a huge demand for slippery elm. And I'll tell you right now, marshmallow root, which grows stupid easy and is a perennial and comes back every year, does almost the exact same thing as slippery elm. So I prefer marshmallow.
So if you're taking the root then, or you're taking the whole plant, so do you just like only take half? So
with this, I actually dug some of this up this spring. I've got another big one in the big garden there that put itself there. It likes to spread randomly. Okay. So you can take the little ones that decided to put themselves wherever they felt like it, or you can try to dig up just part of it. When you've got a shovel, you can, kind of break a chunk off and just take some of the root. I have dug up entire plants. This one's been here for like 4 years, so it ain't going anywhere. And there's another big one in the garden that put itself there. It only been there for 2 years, but oh my gosh, I would need a backhoe to get that thing out. It's insane. Really? The roots are so huge, they're in there. Okay. Just like that comfrey that we looked at. Yeah. That comfrey lives there now. When it put itself there, I said, oh, look, a comfrey, I'll just let this stay. That was a stupid thing for me to do, because that thing gets like 4 feet wide. It takes over half the garden bed. I'm like, why did I do this? And I can't get it out for the life of me.
What about buttercup? I just learned about buttercup.
Buttercup's toxic.
That's what I wondered. Yeah. Okay.
You can't eat buttercups, and a lot of people, their farms are, the fields are full of buttercup, and it sucks because the cows can't eat it either. It's just kind of there. Like, I don't hate it.
Do you know, is it doing something? Because I was learning there are plants that are toxic, but it's because they're drawing toxins out of the ground.
Oh yeah, well there are also actually, there's some plants and some mushrooms that are known for remediating the toxins in the ground. I don't know off the top of my head if buttercup is one of them. I'd have to go find out.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
But they're like daisies and dandelions for sure. Like if you have a big field that was full of toxins or like toxic waste dump kind of thing, you could plant daisies and dandelions and probably maybe plantain or something. Those things with the big deep tap roots there. You're not going to want to eat them or make medicine with them after that, obviously, but the plants will remediate the soil there. I've seen a lot of places like where they take a building down and you're like this huge just chunk of, looks like something must have been there, and you notice later on in the year it's full of dandelions and they're trying to fix the soil. Yeah. Plants have intelligence.
Isn't that so cool?
Plants show, so I will tell you the one woo-woo thing I'll say is it's a commonly held belief amongst other herbalists. Plants show up when you need them. So if you've lived in somewhere, like if you just moved somewhere and you see these weird plants, it's not necessarily for you, but if you've lived in a place for 6 months or a year or longer, and you suddenly go in your yard and you start noticing this plant that wasn't there before, that plant is trying to tell you something. That plant is telling you that you need it. So many people just don't pay attention. They're like, oh, this thing, and I'm gonna mow it. And then years go by before somebody like me comes along, and like people find out they've got ground ivy. Oh, I hate this thing, I'm gonna mow it, I'm trying to dig it up, I'm constantly trying to dig out the ground ivy, I'm so sick of this plant, I want my grass, and I come over and I say, do you have mucus problems? Do you have issues with mucus and allergies? And they're like, yeah, and I say, do you have tinnitus? And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've had that for years, and I'm like, that's why the ground ivy showed up in your yard, it's trying to heal you, and you didn't know it.
That's so crazy. So these are the things you discuss when you're consulting?
A lot of that, yeah. Wow. And I talk about some of this stuff on my social media profiles. Like people follow me on TikTok. I'm constantly giving away free information.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, I would love it. I teach classes too, if anybody wants to take my classes. But I teach classes online and in person. But yeah, plants have intelligence, and it's you don't realize it until like I hope everybody that watches this goes out in the yard and suddenly sees, oh, I'm going to notice this thing here. I didn't see that there before. And then you go and at least just Google the plant or try to figure out what this plant is. Yeah. Maybe that's trying to tell me something. And it's not in 100% of the case. Like if it's bittersweet, you know, Asian bittersweet, Oriental bittersweet, whatever you want to call it, that is highly invasive and comes out everywhere. That's not trying to tell you something. Or in some ways, mugwort. Like around here, mugwort is very, very invasive. I still work with mugwort.
Really?
Because I make incense too, and I love making incense out of this. I love burning mugwort. It's my favorite thing to burn.
So you talk about too that you do a lot of wild foraging, and that's kind of where this herbalism almost got started, is what you can find in the wild.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the stuff that's randomly showing up in my yard qualifies as wild foraging, I think.
That's true.
Because I didn't put it there. Right. If it shows up on its own, because there's some wild black cat raspberries back here. I have these 3 big black walnut trees. There's one there, and there. So I have black walnuts, much like most other nut trees, drop their nuts usually every other year. So
we had one on our farm.
Yeah. Last year I had a huge crop of black walnuts. I don't expect anything from these guys this year. If I get some, great. If not, whatever. I'm sure I can find black walnuts from somewhere else in the area that didn't have a big nut year.
What do you use them for?
The outside husk of the black walnut, that green husk, when it's still green, is anti-parasitic. Black walnut husk is the main ingredient in every natural parasite cleanser you'll ever find online.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I make a parasite cleanser with that. People or animals or whatever you want to do with it. Because I'm a forager and I eat wild stuff, I eat stuff out of the woods all the time, I do a parasite cleanse on myself twice a year, at least, sometimes 3 times a year, because I know at some point along the line I've probably eaten wherever a snail pooped or something. I don't know. You know, it's you don't always look for that.
Right.
But you got to be careful. And black walnut, again, you got to get them when they're green. Because once they've turned black, they're not, the medicine's kind of gone from it. So what I do is when they fall, I collect a whole bucket of, like buckets and buckets and buckets of them, and I cut the green husk off. But then on top of that, I'm sitting there cutting these green husks off, and I can test the nuts to see if they're any good. If you float the black walnut, like if you stick them in a bucket of water, they float, they're bad. If they sink, they're good. Easy. Okay. Anyway, you know, this is wild black cap raspberry growing on the edge of the woods. I'm gonna leave it there because I'm gonna eat it.
Oh, yeah.
Oak bark, this is one of my oak trees, which, you know, I like to leave it here, but oak bark is my go-to remedy for poison ivy. So, and there's poison ivy climbing up this oak tree. So that's fun. As long as I don't touch it, I'm good. But what you would do is you take a branch off the oak, and I ask permission because I'm a dirty hippie and I talk with trees. But you find an oak tree or something that has low enough branches for you to reach, or a sapling or something, and you just cut one of the branches off. Make sure it's a fresh, alive. Like this just broke, that's dead. Okay. You want to make sure it's still got like either leaves or it's still good and alive. And then you just take your knife and scrape the bark off, put it into a pot with some water, simmer it on your stovetop for about 30 minutes, and then strain it out. And that water is called a decoction. Get a washcloth, dip it in the water, and put it on your skin on the poison ivy rash. And do that like 2 or 3 times a day. And your poison ivy is going to be gone in like a week instead of a month, because oak bark dries out the rash. Okay. It's absolutely awesome.
Interesting.
Yep, I think I'm the only one that does this. Every time people are like, oh yeah, you can do this plant, you can do that plant, I'm the only oak bark lady. What else is in here? Just watch where you go, because there is some poison ivy back. I'm just going to kind of go through. Oh, hey, look, cool. We got cranesbill back here.
What is it?
Cranesbill! I can't remember the medicinal, I think it's an astringent, but that's a cool little wild plant.
It's very pretty.
Yep, and I actually, if you look right here, this was here when I moved in. This is wild currants. Can you see them?
Yes, I do.
And these are white when they're ripe.
Oh.
They're white. Like, I didn't even know that was an option for currants. I've seen red, I've seen black, but no, white currants are a thing.
Is
and
it a
I have
berry?
them growing wild here. Huh?
Is it a berry?
Yeah. Yeah. You've never heard currants? Currants? Okay. I grow some red ones on purpose in my garden, and I just last year planted some black ones because I like the black ones too. But these, like, I actually came back here and I dug some up and I put them in the garden because it's kind of a pain in the butt to get back here when it's harvesting time and the birds get mad at me because they're like, no, those are mine. But they're so good. They're sweet and tasty and delicious, and you can see these are gonna turn white, almost like a translucent color, and they're wonderful. So, and I've got a bush here, and there's another bush on the other side over there.
How long? I'm thinking about all of the knowledge that you have right now. How long has it taken you to really get that? Because I think that people, myself included, who aspire to be deeper, people like me who aspire to have a deeper knowledge in the herbalist side of things, it seems a little overwhelming. Like right now I'm like, wow, I want to be you, but holy crap.
It's a lot of work.
That seems like a lot of extra learning, which is fine. That's life. But how long have you been doing this, and what really has your like knowledge base been set from?
The first time I ever foraged any food on purpose was 2006.
Okay.
So I was like 22 or 23, poor as hell, living in a crappy apartment in Washington State, and I foraged some blackberries because everybody can recognize blackberries. With the herbalist stuff, it's good to dabble. Find out what's in your backyard. Like, what can you get for free that is easy to find? It's probably, plantain is probably going to be one of them. And I can go back and show you some of that too, because plantain grows absolutely everywhere. I think the Southwest is the only place in the whole country that plantain doesn't really grow that much.
Because it's just sand.
Yeah, exactly. And it likes sand too. So it's like plantain is everywhere. That was my first real herb, and I can explain why. Find out what's in your backyard, what you can see, what you can find, or pick like maybe 5 herbs and be like, I'm gonna learn these 5 herbs. I made a blog post a couple weeks ago on my website that's 5 herbs that I will always grow or find or forage, and I talk about that in some of my classes and stuff too. Because if you start with 5 herbs, you're like, okay, I can do 5 herbs. I can handle that. I have an ebook that I wrote, Commonly Misidentified Plants. And it's not every single commonly misidentified plant in the entire world.
Right.
It's 26 of them that I come across frequently that I feel like people really should know. Like they mix up this one with this one with this one. And in most cases, you're okay, it's not gonna kill you. But in some cases, this can kill you if you get the wrong plant.
Yeah, I've heard of some horror stories over wild carrots.
Yes, and that is because poison hemlock it's in the carrot family. So looks learning a little bit about botany helps, just a little bit. I had the opportunity last month to take a trip to Ohio. So somebody has been watching me online, and we contacted me and hired me. She paid for my trip. I flew out to Ohio and I taught her foraging on her land in Ohio. It was awesome, because I found at least 5 new plants that I hadn't seen before. One of the plants that she had in great abundance, unfortunately, was poison hemlock. Lots of it.
The Midwest is bad.
Oh my gosh.
We had it in our pastures.
So she's in Ohio, and it was on the side of the road, and I'm going, wow. So the good thing that I've got going for me is I know with 100% certainty I have a lot of Queen Anne's lace growing on my property. I've made jelly with it, I've eaten the roots, I've done all kinds of stuff. Queen Anne's lace is Daucus carota, which is the same as carrots. All carrots are Daucus carota. Okay. They're just descended from Queen Anne's lace, basically. So Queen Anne's lace it's in the carrot family, and that's the one most people want, Queen Anne's lace, and they end up, they're terrified that they're gonna pick poison hemlock. Now that I've seen both plants, like right up close, it's very easy to tell the difference. So the leaves do look similar, but you wanna look at the stem.
Okay.
So the stem on poison hemlock is long and smooth and has these like reddish purple spots on it. The stem on Queen Anne's lace is hairy. There's no spots, it's just green, and it's skinnier, it's hairy. So the way that people remember it is the queen has hairy legs. If the queen has hairy legs, hairy stem, that's gonna be...
I love that. The queen has hairy legs. Yep. That should be a t-shirt. And actually, I think that's
with a picture of Queen Anne's lace, right?
I'm gonna make that.
We should do that.
You should make that a t-shirt. Let's walk back out here.
Yeah, I want to show you what plantain is, because that's one thing like every single person in the world should know what plantain looks like. I
love plantain. And I noticed it specifically. So we took an old hay pasture and turned it into, or it was an old hay field, and we turned it into pasture for our animals.
Yep.
And the plantain only grew where we walked through the field.
That's why they call it white man's footprint.
Yep, exactly, exactly.
White man's footprint, it likes to grow. What it's doing, honestly, is remediating the hard, compacted soil.
Yeah, because it's got a huge root, right?
It's got some good, strong tap roots, and it breaks up the hard soil. And if you think about what plantain does in the body, this is the doctrine of signatures. That's the big herbalism thing. Plantain is a moistening plant. It will heal. It will help heal dry, like your skin is dry or itchy. You've got problems with that. Your internal, your stomach is not necessarily dry, but like there's holes in the leaky gut kind of thing. And plantain will heal all of that dry breaking stuff.
Okay.
Just like think about the soil that plantain is growing in, the dry breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And it's growing in where it heals.
And you've got some.
I've got tons of plantain. So let's see. This is Plantago rugelii. There's Plantago major, looks just like Plantago rugelii. Rugelii is the version that grows in the United States. It's native to the United States.
Okay.
And the only way you can tell the difference, you see this one. See on the bottom how it's red?
Oh, yeah.
That's rugelii.
Okay.
This one can get way big. The leaves have been like the size of a dinner plate. Major ends up smaller. They're still wide like that, but they stay smaller.
Gotcha.
And this is Plantago lanceolata. They're all plantain.
Gotcha.
They're all the same exact kind of plant. They're just slightly different. You can work with them all interchangeably. I tend to put the lance leaf one in tea, and this one I make into salves. But they work the same. They're fine.
Awesome.
This is the one everyone should know. This is the first plant I teach to every child. As soon as my kids could walk, I taught them plantain. Because if you get a bug bite or a bee sting or stung by a wasp or anything like that, if you fall down and scrape your knee and you're bleeding, you're not like a huge gash, but you're bleeding, you got to scrape.
Right.
Find some plantain, chew it up in your mouth, and then put that on the wound or on the bug bite or on the bee sting. And it stops the itching, it stops the pain, and it helps heal the broken skin right away.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know
plantain
that.
is absolutely amazing.
And how cool it is to know that when it's on a farm.
Oh
because
yeah, because you're gonna hurt yourself.
And you get hurt on a farm.
You are gonna get hurt. You're gonna get. I don't know if you noticed. I'm barefoot all the time back here. I have stepped on bees. I have stepped on bees multiple times, and I'm allergic to bees, so that's extra fun for me.
Oh yeah.
I don't go into anaphylactic shock and die. I get faint and shaky and almost pass out. Like I need to sit down for a while if I get stung by a bee. But the last time I got stung by a bee was here. I was walking out to the garden and I stepped on a bee and I limped back, and on my way limping back to the house, I picked some plantain and I chewed it up and I stuck it on the bee sting. And within less than 3 minutes, the pain was gone and it wasn't itching and hurting so bad anymore, and the swelling had gone down.
Wow.
So that's what you need to know this plant.
Wow.
This is absolutely amazing. I make a salve and an oil and everything with this. So
that's awesome.
It is phenomenal, and it grows everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's awesome. I think that I could sit here with you for probably like a week straight and
people say that.
just talk with you and learn from you. But I know like my personal journey, one day Paul and I, we're gonna have our own homestead again. I would love to just continue. Well, I'm working with herbs now, but I'm buying them from people and using them for us now. We can't grow too much. We've got like 5-gallon buckets of a few things, but that's it.
Yeah.
So if you were talking to me, what would be, if I find a farm and it's run down or whatever, what would be the first thing that I should do to start working with herbs?
With herbs?
Yeah.
You probably want to plant some herbs for you to cook with. So many people underestimate how important everybody's like, oh yeah, of course I've got parsley, of course I've got oregano, of course I've got thyme. All of those herbs that you work with for food purposes are actually healing you the more you eat them. So thyme and oregano are both very antibacterial and antiviral. Like I would always plant thyme. Thyme is on like the top 5 list of herbs. Because you can make a steam with it, you can eat it, it's delicious. You can take it medicinally as a tea or anything. Like if you're sick, drink some thyme tea, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The herbs that you're gonna wanna eat, because then they're serving a dual purpose.
Yeah.
But also, pick like your top favorite herbs. There are some herbs that I absolutely love and I love to work with that I have tried time and time again to grow on my farm, and they won't grow. So that's the thing that sucks. Like you have to accept that once in a while, some herb is just, or some plant is not gonna like you, or it's not gonna like your ground or it's not, whatever it is. And I buy that one, you know?
Right.
But you know, I don't work with it all the time. I try mostly to work with what I see around me. So what I would do if I were you is look around and see what's there first. See what is available, because there's always going to be weeds or something available. Everybody says they're weeds. Weeds are just plants that are in a spot where you don't want them to be.
Yeah.
Everything that's a weed here is, like, most of them are my friends. So but yeah, see what you have and then decide on your top 5 or whatever, and grow the food stuff. Although I will say, the one thing you want to plant on purpose for medicinal reasons is the comfrey. Like, everybody should be growing comfrey, if you can. I know it grows well. I think it's down to like zone 7 or 8 it'll grow. Okay. I'm zone like 6 here. Okay. So it's like between 4 and 8, somewhere in there. You can Google it, I'm sure. But yeah, comfrey, if you can't grow it, definitely find somebody that does grow it, because like I said, I grow almost everything here myself, or I go out in the woods and I forage for my stuff. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me out.
You're welcome.
This has been amazing. You are our very first tour here in Connecticut, and I just, what a foot to step out on. This is so awesome. It's got me way energized.
Good.
I'm excited to keep following you on social media. We'll put all of those plugs, like I said, in the description below.
Thank you.
And this place is beautiful.
Thank you.
What you're doing here is awesome. So thanks for having me out.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Like I said, what a way to get started in Connecticut. This place is beautiful. I mean, she calls it a farm. She's growing things, but it's such a small area that it really gives you perspective that you don't have to have a lot to grow a lot, really, at all. And like, she's foraging, just looking at what you have on your land and what you can do, I think is so important, and something that I'm going to keep thinking about and keep in mind when Paul and I do settle down one day. So what a cool space. I'm so excited to keep following her on social media. I hope you do too. Check her out and look at her website for anything else that she has to offer. We've got a lot of tours set up for Connecticut. We're really excited. We're gonna keep chugging along. Thanks for tagging with me today. I'll see you at the next one.